We're live.
All right. Hey, Scott from Aristocob.com.
Oh, wait. I think I have the intro music. Hang on. No, but just a picture. We're live.
Hey, Scott from Aristocob.com here.
Seth from SethMarkwood.com.
And I'm Joshua from Portland, Oregon.
And together, along with you, the four of us today, we're Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. Welcome. And welcome, Joshua. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Or as I always joke with my friends, please, my mother was Joshua. Call me Josh.
But you, Josh. All right. Well, now you get a taste of why I wanted Josh to join us here. Yeah, I was going to ask you that too, because almost all the Joshuas I know as Josh, but I'm not always sure if that's what they prefer.
You know what? I go through this at work. I go through this all the time at work because I always write Joshua, and I'm in business and stuff, so I always tell my coworkers and stuff like, introduce me as Joshua, because part of it too is like, then as the client gets to work with me, it's something that I can show familiarity and stuff like that. But call me Joshua. I'm writing Joshua. My email's Joshua. So, but then it's like, okay, now we're friends. Call me,
Okay, I'm going to call you Sparkles.
That's a good story.
Yes. We'll get to that. We will get to that. So let me first tell everybody a little bit about, from my perspective, who you are and how we got connected. I forget how many years ago it was, but I was in Torrance, California on business, threw out a quick message on one of the social media platforms saying, hey, anybody interested in meeting up? I'm going to be at the cigar place there in Torrance. And it was such short notice, I really didn't connect with anybody in particular, just threw it out there. And in walks this handsome young man, and no, not Seth. And we sat and had a wonderful evening, at least from my perspective. Right? Getting to know you.
That's
and
one of us.
Learning a little bit about you. And in fact, you connected me with a great pipe visit, or a great haunt, a great place to visit. And I have that in my history now. But tell us a little bit about you. Who are you and why are you here?
Yeah, well, I got to say, it ended up being, my wife and I, we're now up in Portland, Oregon, but we were living in Los Angeles, as you pointed out. And I think if memory serves, you were in LA every other year with business, I think, is how it worked out. And so we actually had a few visits with you after that one. And it was something that I always looked forward to. And we'd either get dinner or we'd meet at the cigar shop. So that was just, that was one of the highlights for me of my time in LA. But yeah, my background is in entertainment. So that's usually what I end up talking to a lot of people about because that's interesting. So
we'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. Well, it's the most interesting thing I've got going for me, I should say. So
maybe we should save that for another visit.
Yeah. I'll start by saying I'm a super boring guy. Don't know why you invited me, but I have this one thing. No, I started off, I was right out of high school. I had the opportunity to either go into law school or to go to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College. And my grandfather, I talked to him about it, and I think most people would be like, what are you talking about? Like, the choice is easy. But my grandfather told me, he's like, Josh, you know what? Law school will always be there. Go. This might be your only opportunity, which turned out it was, because the clown college, the year I was the last official graduate, Zehner, and then they closed.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then now there's no Ringling Brothers. That's after 150 years plus or whatever, it's gone now. But so I toured with that. And then it's funny, I never wanted to be in the circus or be a clown, but I ended up there. And then, because I wanted to do comedy. And then I ended up in Las Vegas for a while. I've done a lot of stuff. I performed with Cirque du Soleil. I helped write and direct different shows and whatnot. And then I kind of transitioned out of that because my wife, who at the time was the girlfriend and then the fiance, went on tour with me and stuff. And it was fun. But at a certain point, like, I wanted more out of life. I wanted to have a home and I wanted to start a family. And I saw the challenges that it took to do that. And it didn't sound like fun for me. And I started thinking about the parts, the aspects of what I liked out of performing and whatnot, and figured there's those pieces that I can find in other places and live a fulfilled life and focus more on this family now that I wanted to start. So that's the long and short of it all. So, yeah.
So Seth might have some questions, but I do want to say something. Here's a connection, Seth, between the three of us. Either Josh introduced me to, or I know I was sitting at the same table as him the very first time I had the Mexican dish, the molcajete, that dish that is just loaded with all the different proteins and things. He and his wife and I were out to dinner in Los Angeles, and I ordered this thing. I mean, and that was full on intestines and you name it. It was a treat.
Man, you had me.
Yeah, I was like, here is an adventure. I said.
What, did you guys have that, or did I just see it on the menu? How did I end up with that?
No, the cheese stood alone on that one.
So I saw it on the
took
menu,
it in,
and it had my name on it. Okay.
Yeah. No, so that was fun.
So you tackled the molcajete solo?
Oh yes.
My man.
I won, but not by much.
They still speak of him. They still speak of him to this day.
So you then you packed up your bag and you moved to Portland.
Yeah.
Why?
Good question. So we wanted to buy a home, and I don't know if you've looked at LA pricing, but they have beautiful
look at a pricing list.
Yeah. It costs too much to even look. They have really beautiful 1-bedroom postage stamps available for $1 million, and so as much as that. Yeah, exactly. As much as my wife and I wanted to have bunk beds with our children one day, we decided maybe we'd get something with at least an extra bedroom. So at that point, like I was born and raised in Orange County, and so I was pretty much home back in LA, but we had lived everywhere. My wife was born and raised in Las Vegas, and I had been all over. So it's like, to us, the idea of packing up and moving wasn't that big of a deal. So we were like, okay, the world is our oyster. Well, the United States is our oyster. We want to stay in the U.S. So where do we want to go? And we actually considered North Carolina was somewhere we looked into, Atlanta, because just the business and how good that is for like young families. And then we also thought about Colorado, and then we were thinking maybe Seattle or whatever. And the funny thing is when we started thinking about Atlanta and North Carolina and whatnot, I told my wife, I said, we're both from the West, and there are certain things culturally where I think I will be walking around offending people left and right in the South and not even know it. And so that kind of made us go, okay, maybe.
Just so you know, to put your mind at ease, they will let you know.
Oh.
Boy, you ain't from around here, are you?
Yeah. Well, I had been warned that if anybody declared to bless my heart, I was probably doing something really wrong. So we started talking. I told my wife, I said, we visited Seattle, and it's about a year behind LA as far as traffic and house pricing. And so I said, Portland, like it's in the middle. It's still a big enough city to where it gets everything, like major tours come through and whatnot. Yep. But it's small enough to where you don't have a lot of that. Now, I'm the guy who came a few years ago, and everybody tells me like, hey, before you came, this place was a lot quieter. But even now, with all the Californians that have moved up here, it's still the tempo and the type of people and everything is much more agreeable with what I would like to raise my child in, and just the kind of environment I like to be in. I find I'm happier in general.
Good. Have you been to the Spruce Goose yet?
We have. And I saw it in Long Beach when I was a kid, when it was outside the Queen Mary. If you remember, they had it under the dome.
Do. Yeah.
Now, when they moved it, for some reason I had it in my head that Japanese investors had bought it and taken it to Japan. Yeah. So in my head this whole time, I was like, well, I'll never see it again. And then we moved up here, and they're like, the Spruce Goose is out there. And I was like, what? And so they have a beautiful aerospace museum. And yeah, it's amazing. But it's a bit of a ways out there, too, which is kind of crazy.
I was there. I was there on business. Yeah. I remember when it left Long Beach, they took the wings off of it and they shrunk wrap it. It was beautiful looking. It looked like a blimp on the back of a semi or two. And off it went. And I thought, well, I guess I missed my opportunity. I'd seen the dome from the Queen Mary several times and would say to myself, I'm going to go there one of these days. And then it's gone. And I'm traveling with a sales rep one day. We wrapped up our business for the day, and he's like, well, I guess we can start heading back to town, and unless there's something else you want to do out here. I said, well, what's there to do out here? He goes, well, we can see the Spruce Goose. But the what? So we did.
And it really is. It's a drive outside the city. It's one of those things where you're like, why is it here? When you learn the history of the company and stuff that's out there, but it's not what you would expect. You would think they'd have it at least in the city here, where it would, get more tourists and.
Yeah, I just think of what a cool food truck the Spruce Goose would be.
It would be the only food truck buffet.
Do you like the food truck scene there?
We're spoiled with food. I mean, as far as like food goes, other than maybe New Orleans, the food here, it's funny. They're such foodies. They will drive a business out of business if it's not up to snuff. So it's the food courts or the restaurant, because a lot of times they'll start as a food truck and then they'll eventually move to a brick and mortar. They'll get a following going. But man, we're so fortunate. Like it's amazing. Like you could pretty much go anywhere and have a decent meal, and then there's some that are just phenomenal. The one thing that's hard to find is good Mexican food up here. And for a California boy, it's like.
So were you living there when they ran that breakfast burrito business out of business?
No.
You remember that story?
No.
So there was a breakfast burrito food truck, and it was just everybody lining up to go to this place. Super popular, amazing reviews on Yelp and everything. And the two ladies that owned it got interviewed on the local news, and they talked about how they discovered, while they were visiting Mexico, they discovered these burritos, and that they basically spied on these old Mexican women to figure out how they were making the tortillas. And they looked in the windows and this and that. And like a wildfire, cultural appropriation came down on them, and they were out of business in 1 week. Done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everybody's happy with what they did, because now we got no good burritos.
But I'm thinking, so did they shut down Taco Bell? I mean, Taco Bell's not authentic Mexican food run by Mexicans.
There's no cultural appropriation happening at Taco Bell. Nothing is being appropriated at Taco Bell.
All right, good point.
Nothing's appropriate at Taco Bell, let alone appropriate.
So I want to get back to your story, because the idea of working for Ringling Brothers and traveling, were you traveling on one of their trains, or what was that life like?
Oh yeah. So they had, in order to get to every city, like every year, if you lived in a big enough town, you saw the circus. Well, there's no way one circus could hit all those, So what they did was they actually had two units, the red unit and the blue unit. And so it took 2 years to do the full tour. So you would be on one unit. We called it the concert tour and the rodeo tour. So the concert tour was like the first year. You hit LA, you hit New York, you hit Chicago, you hit like the big cities. And then they called it the rodeo tour because you'd hit smaller towns, outside major cities, but still big enough to have an arena and whatnot. And so I was on, I toured for 2 years, so I got to see the whole country. I was on the blue unit. And we lived on a train. It's funny because if you watch Dumbo the movie, they went and they studied Ringling Brothers. It's very much, even their firehouse gag is from the Ringling Brothers. But so much of that, I'm like, oh, it's just stereotypes. Or then I watch, I'm like, oh man, so much of my life is in Dumbo the movie. So it's funny, like everything was very much like that. Like as much as time changed, things still times didn't change. Like we all sat at steamer trunks and got ready, which was a cool sight because you could take a photo and just see these steamer trunks light up and these clowns all with little hand mirrors putting on makeup and their stuff like that. My trunk, well, let's see if I can swing it over, but that's my steamer trunk right there.
Wow.
And it was getting harder and harder each year for the young guys to go find their trunk because you'd have to hit up antique stores and whatnot, and then hope you find one that's in work, like strong enough to still work, because you're going to work these things. They get packed up every week and unpacked into a new arena and stuff. So they got damaged a lot, but mine held through.
Does that open vertically in that position, and you got things that hang in there?
Yep. So mine stood upright like that and did it. Some guys got the ones that open like a treasure chest.
Yeah.
But to me, it was more desirable to have that because then you have a full chest of drawers. You got the hanging side, like you were alluding to with your costumes and stuff. It just felt felt cooler. Yeah,
that would feel cooler, I would think. So you were a clown, right?
Yeah. So
and so I remember you talking about you would go out as they were setting things up, and you would go out sometimes and talk to the press. Is that right?
So I know what you're alluding to. So you have to do press to get people to come, and so I'm sure you've seen like the morning weather guy will be at the motor speedway or he'll be at the circus or whatever. And so when you've got an international cast of characters putting on a show, more than likely, good chance the only English speakers on the whole show might be your clowns. Also, the clowns were good visual anyways. So we did all the press, whether it was morning radio or news or whatever. The clowns took care of most of the press. And we would be working with those morning guys. And I know it. I'm gonna tell the joke because I know you're alluding to. So my buddy came up with a good one we used a lot because we were like, okay, I'm Joshua Zehner and I perform I'm a clown, but people think of like birthday clowns, like I'm Winky or whatever, the clown, and I twist balloons or whatever. But really, we were just performers, and that was a style of performance, And so we would go to every time they'd want to know your name so they could put it on the thing or whatever, and they'd say, what's your name? Oh, I'm Joshua Zehner. What's your clown name? And so the joke was we'd go, oh, well, my clown name's Joshua Zehner. My real name is Sprinkles. And you'd get the, what?
It still works. So, Seth, do you have any questions about his clown career?
A couple of questions from the chat have actually popped up. What was your clown name?
Joshua.
Joshua Zehner. I think I told you guys my real name is Sprinkles. I'm working tonight under my clown name.
Excellent. Do you have a picture of you in makeup?
That's a good question. The real question is how do we pull it off on this? But maybe I think I could do this.
This is the pinnacle of internet technology.
Yeah, this is at its height.
Point the iPhone at the iPad. What could go wrong?
I just hope I don't open up like a portal into a dimension and we all get sucked in.
Yeah, we're going to get a visual echo here.
What I'm trying to find is, I may not have any. I actually should have thought of this ahead of time and had some programs ready or something. But I'm trying to find at least me more recently on Cirque du Soleil. You know what? We'll keep talking, and if I could find it as we're talking.
When you were with Cirque, I'm sorry. When you were with Cirque, were you traveling, or was that in Vegas?
It's a great question. Funny thing is I was working and performing in Las Vegas and got hired to leave Las Vegas and go create a show in Montreal and take it on tour. So it's one of the few people to come from Vegas and leave it to go work with Cirque du Soleil. Almost everybody's brought in.
They needed somebody who could speak English up in Montreal.
No, as a matter of fact, they hate you if you speak English in Montreal. I remember one of my friends, we were ordering at a restaurant, and she's from Canada, but the west side of Canada, the Toronto. And so, what's that? And then, so she tried to order, when in Rome, right? She tried to order in French. And the waitress finally said, do you guys want to keep speaking bad French, or should we go ahead and do this in English? We were like, hee-haw! So we're like, yeah, I guess we could do it that way. Sure. I don't know, guys. I'm having trouble finding this. I'll be better prepared in a few years. Next quarantine.
Did you ever ride in a little clown car?
No. They have little clown cars. I didn't ride in it.
Not even as a passenger?
No, I use claustrophobia as a reason to not get in there. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm out. You guys, you knuckleheads have fun squeezing in there. I'm not doing that. So I had no skills. Most clowns could do things like juggle, balance, all of that. I was known in the alleys being skillless, and my only skill was being funny. So I got to do kind of the higher profile spots, but I also had to get the laughs. So I was like, that was my excuse out of a lot of stuff. Like, really, guys, I got to be just mentally prepared to go out there. You guys, you take
So getting in the clown car just squeezes all that out of you, huh? I can see that.
Squeezes a lot out of you.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So you, at one point, you worked with one of my favorite comedians / magicians. Can you tell
Amazing
us about
Jonathan.
that?
Yeah, Amazing Jonathan.
Wow.
Yeah, he's your and my favorites. So I thought he was just hilarious from, for years. And then I moved to Las Vegas, and I was working with the Second City, performing improv comedy and sketch and stuff, and mostly improv. I was a cast member of the improvised show, but I would also fill in on. We helped out by doing the other cast sometimes when people were out, and I met there one of my favorite comics ever. Her name's Penny Wiggins. She and I became friends when we were on just through the classes and whatnot, and because there was also a school there. And it turns out she was Psychic Tanya. She was the airhead assistant to Amazing Jonathan, who gets staple gunned in the head and all that. So I didn't even really know it for a while, and we hit it off. And she was so funny, and I love funny people, and we connected. And then she said, she finally told me what she did. And she said, "You've got to meet Jonathan. Jonathan would love you." And so she started inviting me to things, and we hit it off right away. Same sense of humor, same sensibilities. And we became such good friends, and we were hanging out every night. It was fun because, I was a young guy. I was, I would teach in the day. I was like the artist in residence for the city of Las Vegas, did all this stuff during the day. Then I'd perform in the evenings. Then we'd all go out afterwards. And the only people in the restaurants were like other performers and stuff. It was a really fun time. And Jonathan, I remember one night, Penny had to go to her sister's wedding. And so this was like a big deal because she was half the act for a good portion of the show.
Yeah.
And so they would bring in occasionally different women to, understudy, but comedy, it's just, you've got to have the right person and the right timing and stuff. And I remember we were sitting around, we were at a sushi restaurant. I wasn't a big fan of sushi, so I'm just watching everybody eat. And she jokingly goes, "Oh man, too bad Josh couldn't do the show for me. He'd be perfect." So then Jonathan, because I did a lot of writing, he turns to me and he points and he's like, "Josh, by the end of dinner, have a way that it could be you instead of me bringing in another woman." I was like, okay. So we're chatting, and the whole time I'm just thinking, like, how do I pull this off? So then I came up with this idea that, hey, so we're walking out to the parking lot, and he's like, "Okay, Josh, what's the idea?" We're climbing the car. I was kind of hoping he'd forgotten because I wanted more time to think. But he's like, "Okay, what's the idea, Josh?" And he was just about to get in the car, too. And I was like, okay, I got it. I said, what if I put on all black, we get me like a really big pair of headphones with the microphone and some really big glasses, like Coke bottle style glasses. And I'll just be this idiot stage manager or like, a crew member. And every time you need something, I bring it out and I'll just mess up. And then we'll basically do your act, but you'll have this idiot that's just bumbling and stuff. And he was like, "That's really funny. That might work." And so then he invited me to do it. We were kind of improvising and just trying it out with her still there and trying to put me in some of the bits to see if it worked. And he was like having fun. So then she went, I did the show with him for the week and a half or 2 weeks. And then at the end of it, he's like, "This is so much fun." And he had a big contract. He had a big spot in a Vegas casino. So he's like always looking for ways to keep it fresh and stuff. So he said, "Josh, why don't you just stick around and just be part of the show? Like, we'll work you in. We'll come up with other bits." And it was fun for him because he was writing new stuff for the first time in a long time. And then for me, it was fun because I'm working with this guy who I just looked up to so much. And then his whole team, Penny and everybody, everyone was just the coolest. So it was like, and that was pretty much my social life anyway. So now it's like, cool. Now I just get to be, I've been watching the band. Now I get to play tambourine, So I was like, this is awesome. So yeah, it was so much fun. And he's like, seriously, like, he is what you would want someone that you admire to be like, because he's super generous. He's the kind of guy who he would like, it's very easy at a party for like the famous guy to get all the attention and to keep the attention and to love it. He'd be the first one to set you up for a joke if he knew you could pull it off. Or he would say, like, if I came up with something funny that made him laugh at dinner, we'd be out afterwards and we'd be at a table full of people and he'd be like, "Josh said the funniest thing. Josh, tell them the thing about and I was just like, it just taught me a lot. And it was a great example for a young guy to see someone who could have easily just been like, be that generous. And so, yeah, that was.
So he was willing to share the spotlight then. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So did you yourself ever develop any addiction to Windex?
Well, remember, the only reason why he drank it is it prevented streaking. And so. Yeah.
I just dropped my pipe. Boy, am I glad that I put this jacket on. It's a fireproof jacket for that very reason. Nice.
So let me turn the tables a little bit on you guys. Like, how are you guys holding up? And I know there's the standard things everyone's talking about right now, so we'll try to kind of skip over that. But like, are you trying to take advantage of this kind of pause we're all taking together? Like, are there things that you've been wanting to do that you're actually finding joy in being able to do?
Let's throw that to Seth.
Yeah.
Great. To some degree, yes. I mean, in terms of work, it's opened me up to focus on some things that have been like really important, but important to do in 8 months. Those things have just moved right on up the priority list. And And so, a lot of those things that I think I talked about last week, as it's nice to be able to focus on things that aren't actively on fire for a change, which is great. Personally, finding opportunities to kind of dive into some other projects, getting stuff cleaned up around the house, cleaning out the garage, spending more time with my 3D printer and some of those things. And I think, even this is a fun artifact of this whole thing. Being forced to rethink, okay, how can we do something a little bit more timely? And we still have a video that we recorded a month and a half ago. And normally at this point, we would have posted that and decided, hey, with everything going on, it doesn't make sense to do that. Let's see if there's a way we can do something a bit more timely. And that kind of just transformed into, what if we involved other people and spread the conversation a little bit? And so this is an exciting thing that, the amount of people that we have already discussed joining for an online live chat with us, hopefully far outpaces any sort of quarantine that we may be experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was literally talking to a friend at work on WebEx about this, but I was just talking about how it's like, this is what it is, so either we could sit around and be grumpy and whine about it, or we could try to have a positive outlook. But either way, this is what it is. Like, this situation will not change. So why not choose to go a happier route and, look for that silver lining? And yeah, I think that it's, in some ways, there's a lot of hardship right now, obviously. And I feel very fortunate. I'm working, you guys are working. A lot of my friends, and I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, aren't, so that's horrible. But in some ways, though, I see like families connecting in ways that like we thought we didn't have time for. And hopefully, this kind of reminds me of the 2008 crash, where my wife and I that's like right after I chose to leave the road and leave entertainment, so it was a very tough year for us financially. But now we look back on it fondly, because it helped us like reset our priorities and think about, what are we spending our money on, and what are we doing, and what is really necessary and what's not. And hopefully people will walk away from this experience with a similar kind of reset. And sure, we'll go back to a lot of the ways things were, but I'm hoping that at least personally, some people do experience some, clarity or insight on their lives and stuff that maybe they hadn't thought of before.
I think that there will absolutely be transformations in the way we do what we do. From a business standpoint, I work for a hardware company that sells to cabinet makers and furniture makers. Let's say this lasts another month or two, who knows? In the meantime, those folks are figuring out that, they can buy their bottle of glue online just as easily as waiting for the next sales rep to walk in, right? So that's going to create, for some people, a real challenge. I think the opportunities for us to have much more in-depth conversations and be more valuable to maybe not the same breadth of customers, but to have greater connection with the customers that we have. And connecting like this through webinars. I've been conducting webinars all week, and these road warriors that I'm talking to every day, they're starved for this. They're starved for having a conversation and making connections. And, I don't know that this sort of thing is going to go away once this is all over. So how cool is this to be having a conversation with a buddy on the West Coast?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't we? I'm doing this on my phone, right? Something I carry in my pocket every day. Anybody could do this.
Yeah, and it's silly that you don't do it until you're forced to not see other people nearby. I was watching a video by Simon Sinek and their team of like 16 remote workers, and they have a weekly check-in for an hour and a half where it's just personal check-in. It's hey, let's connect as humans. Let's give each other virtual high fives, and they're high fiving camera, and talking
I don't
about
even do
great
that
things
when it's not virtual.
I know. Talking about great things that I appreciate that so and so did this week. I see you, that sort of thing, and just that I imagine that the salesman and I think it's especially true now in this environment. But there are a lot of people that don't get that sort of positive interpersonal interaction with their coworkers or the people that they spend the majority of their time with on a normal basis. And so hopefully we see more of that being developed, and people see the need for positive human interaction in their life.
Yeah. So Josh, I want to hear, and everyone else, to kind of get some insight into what it is you do, at least as much as you're willing to share. Yeah. But a far more important question: what is your favorite game to play with your family?
Both very deep questions. So I'll start with what I do. So I work for. I'll be as ambiguous as you are, Mark, with how you guys. So I'll tell you the function of what I do. I work for one of maybe the largest information companies in the world. And my role is I work specifically with the top C-level executives in the world, bringing them together. And part of why they come together is to learn from one another and teach one another. Like, I will say, like, to be a fly on the wall at these gatherings is incredible, because I'm truly hearing, like, much of our world being shaped in these conversations, because these men and women are actually, making choices that affect all of us, to the Coca-Cola I got, or, whatever. Like, these are huge decisions being made. But then part of it is, so they're sharing with one another, but then they also at these gatherings they may say, hey, this technology is very important to us, or this, we have this challenge that we're trying to overcome. You guys are the smart people. Go find us solution providers and bring them to us. And make sure you have vetted them, so it's someone that you guys can stand behind when you put them up in front of us. So we go, okay. So then my job is to then go to those solution providers and kind of be the gatekeeper and go, hey, there's this awesome opportunity. We got to have a little conversation, though, because if I'm going to put you up in front of the Fortune 100, the solution's great. Is it ready to work at a company that size or with that many employees? So it's an interesting role. The cool thing is that, they a lot of times they'll joke and go, because they'll look at my LinkedIn or whatever and they'll go, how'd you go from the circus to doing this? And I always joke and say, oh, it's a different circus, but the same clowns. So, where they'll always laugh. But really, like, I did the circus stuff, but then I also, like, with Cirque du Soleil and even with Jonathan and stuff and a bunch of other things we haven't even touched on. But my role, part of my job was not just performing. I was one of the few that also wrote. And so my job was taking this multi-million-dollar corporation's message and helping articulate it to an audience. And so that's where my skills come in really handy, because I'm taking in what it is they're telling me and helping them share it with this community and know your audience, and really helping them understand, like, okay, here's how you want to say it, though, because they might come in and go very technical or very, and I'm like, well, if we can articulate like this, I think it will ultimately help you. It'll help them and it'll help you. You're going to get some sales out of this, but you're also going to say it in a way that's going to resonate with them. So yeah, that's my job now. And it's challenging. It's fun. It's a function. It's a sales role in a way, but it's kind of different. But kind of going to what you guys were talking about, like, I've noticed my clients I work with who are normally a voice on the other end of a phone, we're all flipping on our webcams for the first time, and we're connecting, and I'm seeing faces that I had a million other ideas or, And the other thing that's really interesting, another thing we were talking about with my coworkers is just, it's also intimate because we're actually inviting each other into our homes now.
Yeah.
And so it's funny. We're all separated right now, but we're actually getting closer in weird ways. And so I think it is one of those things like you said, Mark, like it will not go back to how it was. Things will be different.
Yeah.
And I think it's forcing companies to go, okay, like the sales guys, your road warriors, truly, what value can I bring to the people I'm assisting now? And make it so when I arrive, they know they're going to get this extra, like not just ordering off the internet, but this will be provided because I'm here. And then also being able to connect like this, relationships are more genuine. And I mean, depending on the studies you read, anywhere from 75 to 98% of human communication is nonverbal. And so we're missing so much by being a voice. By doing this, I could see if you guys are going like, oh, Jesus, or whatever, like we can see.
You are exactly right. You're exactly right. It's hard for the face to lie. Mouths lie really well, but faces don't lie so well.
Well, we have substituted even the verbal communication for written communication so often, and that's even harder to translate into actual meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just telling Seth about something that I posted on an internal forum that got misunderstood at an executive level. And when I reread it, putting myself in that person's mindset, I realized I wasn't being as clear as I would have been. And I actually went in and edited what I meant to be heard, and suddenly it made a lot more sense, right? And it is so hard because you read emails with a voice. And if this person that you're reading the email is a person that you have some problem with, you read it with that chip on your shoulder. That's right.
Yeah.
And you hear a certain voice that may not be intended at all. So.
Yeah, or he just got in a fight at home with his wife because he didn't take out the trash. And now he opens the phone and he goes, "What's this knucklehead saying?" And it's completely not what you at all meant.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
Seth, you work a lot with teams. Oh, I was going to say, Seth, I was listening to what you were talking about last week about your job and stuff like that. So you are managing people right now. Like, are you finding, in some ways, is it actually helping you find a level of closeness or camaraderie maybe that you hadn't had before because of this? I don't know. It's just a thought.
Not for me, but that's because we're a really small company. And so, I'm managing 2 people at the moment. And so, we're, as a small company, the people I'm now interacting with via webcam were just right next door.
Gotcha.
And so, if anything, to a degree, the opposite is true. There's less daily interruption. And so the time spent is a little bit more focused, probably in a good way. But it also means that what I have felt is I have felt more, I guess, mental load, having to be dedicated to figuring out what the tasks need to be, because I feel even greater responsibility now at a distance to make sure that they know what they need to be focusing on, and laying that out in a very clear way and following up with that. And so that's something that it's oddly new, even though that responsibility has always been there. I think part of it's because the priorities of putting out the day-to-day fires have shifted now to let's focus on 8 months, projects that we had slated for later in the year. So that is certainly a big change. But we're doing daily huddles with our leadership team, and then I'm doing daily meetings then immediately after with my team, and so trying to keep as much daily face-to-face communication as we can.
I appreciate what you said last week. I forget how you worded it, but you said something to the effect of like you're managing the project but not the person or whatever. Something that, but it's like
outcomes and not activities. Yeah.
Yes. At this time, I think that is so appreciated because as someone who's working from home, there's times where I feel like, am I doing enough? And I don't even leave my desk. I'm truly there working all day, but I still feel like, I'm not doing enough or whatever. But I like that. Yeah. Like if I can deliver what's expected of me today, this thing, it doesn't matter how I go about doing it. If I can get it done, that should be enough mostly for myself to feel like I'm doing something. And I just, the way you said it last week, I was like, yes, okay, that's what should be going on right now.
Yeah, I've got a friend who had posted something. I think it was a doctor or some repost, but somebody was pointing out that, hey, look, you cannot be expected to be a full-time employee and a full-time teacher and a full-time mom all at the same time. There are people that choose one of those three careers and they just do one. And so don't beat yourself up for not being able to do all of them to 100% during this time. And so there's got to be flexibility. I know that not everybody who is managing people understands that. And so, I know there are a lot of people feeling really unnecessary and unfair pressure during this time. But, I hope that as companies adapt and people are dealing with their own pressure, that they'll have some grace and some understanding of those that they're managing and recognize, what's the real priority here.
Yeah. So is the other quarter of Markerman's Breakfast Club active there, Seth?
Yeah. Well, they're actually chatting with each other. There was a question about Austin said that he's taking his time to learn acoustic guitar, something he would have never gotten into otherwise.
Nice.
Awesome.
We Nat asked, can we expect this for Tobacco Advent live?
I can't imagine that we could pull that off.
3-person chats. Yeah, I'm
not the way we do that as a daily show.
Well, it's certainly not live. Maybe bank if we start now. If we start now, just like with the 3D printed ornaments.
Tell you what, though, but before we're done, let's answer the question about, do we continue this? Right. Let's not answer that now, but before we wrap this up, let's give an answer to that question. And then you do have a family now, right? You moved to Portland in part because the plan was to have a family. Did you pull that off?
I did. So my wife and I, this is fun. So we were trying in LA. And then we moved up here and we were going to rent a little house while we got to know the area before we bought our house now, So we moved up here and it was we drove everything. It took a couple of days and all that. You know how much fun moving is. And so then we unload everything into the house we're renting. Most of it's in the garage. And finally, the couch is at least set up. I've got the TV going and we're going to sit down on Saturday night and just watch a movie, finally relax. So my wife, she doesn't tell me, but she thinks to herself, well, just to be responsible, I'll go take a pregnancy test before I pour myself a glass of wine. So she goes upstairs and into the bathroom up there, and I'm downstairs, and 15 minutes is going by, and I want to watch this movie. So I go stomping up the stairs going, hey, what's going on? Like, are you ready? And she's standing in the bathroom just looking at this thing. So then she holds it up to me and she goes, I think I'm pregnant. And I go, okay, hold on a sec. I grab my keys. I run out to the car. I go to the nearest CVS. I'm like looking on maps, trying to find where the CVS is around us. I go in there and I start to just buying like, well, that's a big company I heard of. That's a big company. I'm just buying multiple pregnancy tests. So I run home and I just kind of throw them on the counter. pee on all of them. So she goes, Josh, I've read, unless there's just a few diseases, rare diseases that would cause this response, but other than that, I'm pregnant. And I was like, okay, yeah, really? You think so? And she's like, yeah. So we jokingly, his name's Wally, little Wally. We jokingly called him our stowaway for the longest time because he came up. We didn't know he was with us.
Oh.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, what was going to be, let's get to the city and then we'll find a house, is an accelerated timeline. And, we're old-fashioned. One, we didn't want to tell anybody till we hit the 3-month mark. And two, we didn't want to know the sex until birth. And so I kept joking that we were going to have a gender reveal party at the hospital. So sometimes I tell them we're going to wait till 2 and do a gender reveal. So we did. So we had accelerated timeline now because we wanted to be in a home, and my wife wanted to nest, and I wanted to feel like I was building a castle for this baby that's coming. So we started looking for homes, and we kept going on and on about the school district, and our realtor just thought we were nuts, and he kept going, "Hey guys, like you can move into a place, and you got a few years before." He's like, "Unless you were pregnant right now, you're probably not going to be in this home by the time the kid's born," and stuff like that, because we were just so adamant about kids going. So finally, and he's a funny guy, but he's not the guy we wanted to be the first to tell. But we're like, well, we've got to tell him. So we're like, okay, weirdo, you're the first guy to know we're having a baby. So now, quit giving us such guff about the school district thing. Let's go find something. Yeah. So we found a nice home and stuff, and it was awesome. And then yeah, it was a tough pregnancy. There was a rough moment there where we got really scared, but then it was like, I don't know, everything good in life, there's some kind of challenge I find, or some kind of hardship or something before it to kind of almost level set and give you an idea of just how good you have it, So then when he was born, we were just over the moon, and he's our little buddy, and yeah, it's so much fun. But I'm 41 now, so I'm a little older. I'm doing the dad thing a little later, so I think I have, in some ways, I'm like, oh, I see the kids 20 years younger having babies. I'm like, would have been great to have that energy right now. But in some ways, I feel like I could offer things, perspectives and stuff that he wouldn't have gotten. So there's a, push and pull of it all.
How old is he now?
He's 27. No, he just turned 2.
Really accelerated.
Yeah. Told the realtor, like, we got fast. No, he's turned 2 in December.
Awesome.
So how old are yours, Seth?
7, 4, and 3. And
wow.
Similar story with our third, our girl. On a Saturday, my wife said, I think if we don't have any more, that's okay. My heart feels pretty full. Monday, she found out we're pregnant. No, number 3 was not planned for, but she's great. So yeah. We've got two boys and a girl, or a matching set and one to spare.
I like that.
Okay, so I have to tell you an interesting story. I'll tell it very quickly. Tomorrow happens to be the 35th birthday of my boy, April Fool's Day. And
happy birthday!
Boy, I don't know if you remember this, but I'll mention to you the day after my 35th birthday was the day I started work at my current employer. So I moved my family from Ohio to North Carolina. Seth was entering high school. Our daughter's 4 years younger. So I think about Seth being my age and how that was such a benchmark at that age to move to North Carolina and to have the job I still hold today, 20 years later. How bizarre it is that Seth is that age tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're an old man,
pretty
boy.
I know. Yeah, well, I'm an old man without a 15-year-old, so I know. My kids aren't entering high school.
That.
No, I thought you were going to tell the birth announcement story.
Wow, that was. Imagine being on the phone, calling. We were living in Dayton, Ohio at the time, calling my parents in Denver, Colorado on April Fool's Day to tell them, "Hey, congratulations, our child was born, our son." And Mom's like, "Right, call us when it happens." No, really.
That's funny. So, what are you doing for your birthday? How are you doing the birthday?
I'm hopefully we'll be eating steak and we'll be working. I don't know. We've got a community group tomorrow night, so my kids about a month ago they started, for some reason they became obsessed with talking about all of the things that they wanted for their birthday. Right, and like, you know, my birthday, we're gonna go to the trampoline park and we're gonna do this, and yeah, and then it's gonna be like Star Wars. We're gonna have a Star Wars party, and just on and 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 on. And so I told them, we're in the van. I turned around and said, "That's it. Birthday's canceled. No more birthdays." And they said, "What?" And they said, well, your birthday's first. I said, "Yeah, my birthday's canceled too." So I've been joking with them. Birthday's canceled. Not doing anything. No cake. Nothing.
Well, I feel like, Seth, that people on the internet have raised the bar so high right now for birthdays. People are doing community parades. They're doing, you know, like celebrities are leaving. That's why I kind of feel like I feel like you've got to do something that's, you know, viral worthy.
Well, I feel like the onus of that is not on me because it's my birthday. It's everyone else that has to come up with the clever way to celebrate me. So,
Mark, get the parade float ready.
all right.
I'll see what we can do.
We did have a couple questions come in. Josh, do you smoke a pipe?
I do. So I don't smoke in the house, but I felt like I should grab one. So I'm holding my anniversary of 150 years, but I have right here. Hold on, I'm gonna grab it. Ugh. This cigar box full of corncob pipes from aristocob.com.
Heard of it?
Hey.
And it's because I won a very generous prize one year. And let me tell you, corncob pipes, money goes a long way with corncob pipes. And so it does not take a lot to amass a huge collection. So I've got more pipes than I know what to do with, of various sizes. But yeah, I won the contest a few years ago, and I've since not competed because I felt like it'd only be fair I let others have a chance.
Okay, so let me tell them that story, because this was International Corncob Pipe Month video contest a couple years ago, and Josh keyed in on a very important thing that was going on. During that season, we were dealing with droughts in the Midwest, and Missouri Meerschaum had actually discontinued a number of their pipes. They couldn't make any of their big pipes, and it was kind of a sad time. And Josh did a video that blew me away. And of course, we will link to it in the doobly-doo once it becomes an actual video. But Josh, your YouTube channel is your name, correct? Is that video still there on your channel?
It's there. Let me see what I have it. I've tried to title it the right way and stuff so people could find it. I've switched it a few times, but I'll look it up while we're talking. I can tell you what to search for.
Okay. So again, understanding when you watch this video that we're at the height of the drought, that was the background to why he did what he did.
I will also say, when you watch this, try to keep in mind, I did this all on an iPad. And so the editing the voiceover, everything completely is done by an iPad. And there's one edit that's slightly too long that if I could go back, I would shrink the time just a tiny bit. And every time I watch it, I go, it like irks me.
Is that because you couldn't get the finger slider to work right? It just wouldn't line up perfectly?
It's like it didn't want to go to the half point that I wanted.
Yeah.
It wanted to jump to one or the other. And so, exactly. And so there's a part where it fades after an introduction, and I'm afraid some people would stop it there and not realize it's about to go on. Hopefully, so if you search for, this is quite the title, but if you, let's see, that ain't gonna work. History, I called it Missouri Meerschaum Pipes ICCPM Submission Hardwood Maple Diplomat Pipe. So I think if you searched ICCPM and hardwood maple, I bet that would take you to where you want to go. And you'll see a bunch of old timers sitting around an old car there. That's the thumbnail you're looking for. And that'll take you there. And it was one of those where I hadn't been doing anything creative in a while, and I just went crazy on this video. And I was writing it. The fun thing is I did it like a documentary, a short documentary piece about the company. And what I was doing, I was just Google image searching corn cob, corn pipes, and I'd find these images, and a moment would go in my head where I'd be like, oh, that would be funny if that was this or this was that. And so then I kind of, as I was editing it and doing the voiceover, I was laying out the story as I went along. So I didn't plan it. I just did it as I went along. And I think it ends up being a pretty decent story.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I just had so much fun doing it, and yet I will never probably do something like that again because it was just so labor intensive. But it was so much fun, and it just, like, you gave me the perfect excuse to do something creative. And the funny thing was
go ahead.
What was that?
I was going to ask how long did you work on it?
It took me, I probably did it like 5 nights. I spent the whole week each evening working on it. My wife enjoyed it because it kept me quiet and in the corner just with my iPad. But then I'm like saying these voiceovers, and my wife was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what is this?
What are you looking at? Corn?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Corn?
Yeah. Corn.
I got a corn addiction after that.
Cornography.
Yes.
I sent it though. I thought, this is fun. I bet they'll get a kick out of it at Missouri Meerschaum. So I sent them it, and I was like, hey guys, obviously this is a parody, but I sent it to you guys because this is a love letter to you guys. And the response I got back was like, hey, thanks, that was nice, or something like that. And I was just like, now again, I had no context because I'm reading words. So maybe they were dying laughing writing it, and they were trying to get that across to me. But at the time, I was like, okay, all right.
They were probably watching it and going, well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Not at all a part of our history.
So I hope people have fun watching that, because that was definitely fun to make. Yeah. Okay. So I do smoke pipes.
John, before we move on, the other question, or a similar question, is favorite tobacco. Do you have one?
Yeah. And it's no longer around because it was made by I love Lane 1Q. It's great. But I really liked also from the original, can't think of their name. Mark, you got to help me on this one. Santa Monica.
It's the Tinderbox. But
yes.
The original location was Ed's Tobacco, or?
It was Ed's Tobacco, and then it became the Tinderbox, and then that got franchised out. But that was Ed's shop, and the original cement mixer he had and the original recipes were there. And supposedly Continental 51, which is one I really enjoyed, that you got from there was supposedly, and I don't know enough, but supposedly different than the mainstream tinderbox stores Continental 51. So I really liked Continental 51, and I really like Lane 1Q. I like aromatics. I enjoy that.
So you used to go to Ed's, and for those of you who didn't get a chance to go there, on your recommendation, I went, and it was such a cool place. The owner, I'm assuming Ed, the original Ed, had his own personal pipe collection on display. He had these glass cases that were around the ceiling area, and pictures of all these Hollywood stars from the 30s and 40s and 50s that used to come in there and buy their tobacco in bulk. And one of my favorite stories was the young starlet, the young wannabe actress who used to come in there and under the guise of, well, my daddy was a smoker and I like to come and be around smokers. And of course they would take her out to dinner and stuff, feeling sad for her. And that was Marilyn Monroe.
Wow. I hadn't heard that one. That's amazing. Yeah, that store was exactly what you would want as your clubhouse to hang out in. The way it looked, the way it was definitely old and wet. It had seen better days, and yet it had so much charm and was exactly what you would imagine a pipe store to be. It was so cool. And they helped me buy my first pipe, which was really cool. And they kind of coached me through.
Do you remember what they had? It was I think it was a sign or a painting over the door of their mixing barn back behind where the cement mixer was?
No.
They had the 7 deadly sins.
That's right.
Above the door.
That's right.
And none of those were tobacco. None of the But yes, I went there. The first time I went after you recommended, I got there and they were closed. So there's actually there's a video on YouTube of me and a buddy there looking through the window late at night. And then I finally was able to go back in there. And once I bought some tobacco, I didn't want to leave. And I wound up buying a pipe while I was there. I bought that funky upside down pipe that you smoke upside down. And that was a really neat experience. And I wouldn't have had that without you. So thank you, Josh.
Thank you. That was a special place. It's and then they had another one. Was it Kramer's or Kremers? I think it was called, in Beverly Hills. And that one's also gone too. It was also a really cool looking old vintage place. And they had supplied tobacco, of course, because they were in Beverly Hills, to a lot of famous people. And they actually had like their blends still in the Cary Grant blend. And I forget some of the others they had, but it was like, it was their house blends that they made for them, and they were still there and stuff. And that was another cool shop. And again, just, times change and they didn't have a place,
Well, that property was so expensive, right? I mean, that was probably where all the value was in the real estate.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah. Millions of dollars.
Yeah. So, what about your, What about your favorite game?
Favorite game. So I like board games. My wife and I like board games. And then it's like any hobby. Once you get into it, you find there's this whole world and this whole community you didn't even know existed. And then also types of games you didn't know existed. So if anybody wants a good strategy game, my wife and I, our favorite game is this game called Orleans. It's spelled Orleans, but everyone calls it Orleans, I think is how you pronounce it. But if you search Orleans and board game, like New Orleans, you'll see this really cool strategy game. We lucked out and we got the company who produced it here in the United States. Whenever they do a first run of a game, well, typically they'll do what they call the deluxeified version. And so instead of just cardboard tokens, they'll do wooden tokens. And instead of, all this kind of stuff. And so we have one of those, which is really nice. And it's good because it's gotten a lot of play. So that we would have worn out the cardboard by now. So the fact we have the nice wooden components is nice. So that's a really good one. And then actually I was recommending games to friends right now to order on Amazon and play. A really like simple one that is called Carcassonne, and it lasts about 15 minutes, and then you start a new round. But there's enough strategy in there where it's fun. You're not stuck feeling like a loser for hours if you're trailing behind. And so it's one of those where you can do like, let's do the best 3 out of 5. Okay, 5 out of 7. Yeah, and you keep going. And you can play it 2 players. My wife and I will play it just 2 of us, or we can play with friends. So Carcassonne is another one I highly recommend to people. And then, Ticket to Ride. If anybody hasn't played board games before and they're looking for something to play with their family, Ticket to Ride is one of those that I think if it was out back when Monopoly first started, it would be the Monopoly of our times. So,
have you?
So is that buzzer driving you nuts?
A little bit.
My light just went out. I was running an LED light on an inverter, so now it's buzzing.
Have you played the iPad version of Ticket to Ride?
Yeah, and you know what's nice in these times, it allows you to actually play with your friends who are far away. Like it's really well implemented.
I'm not sure what's happening.
Sorry, I'm going to deal with this.
That's okay. Daniel's recommended King of Tokyo.
That's a fun one. Dice rolling. That's a good one. If you have probably 4, you want minimum of like 4 because there's a lot of action going on. So you want like people chucking dice and stuff. That's a good one. Yeah. I've got like 100, I think, so I could go for hours.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh man.
So it's like very much in line with how you and your dad get into hobbies. It's I'm cut from the same cloth. So
yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we tend towards slightly more I don't know, less accessible games a little bit. Smash Up is one. Munchkin's probably my favorite. And the one that we play most often now these days though is Unstable Unicorns. You played that yet?
I have not played it, but I've heard of it.
It's so good. Yeah, it's a card-based deck building game. It's really great.
Yeah, there is something comforting about holding a handful of cards and sitting around a table. I love that.
Well, and it's one of those games like Munchkin that encourages you to stab your friends in the back, and so it gets cutthroat. It's great. I love it.
I just thought of one because you made me think of it with the cards and stuff. There's a really good card game that's inexpensive. You usually find it for like $20 on Amazon called San Juan, and it's actually a card. It's a card game based off of a board game called Puerto Rico. Yeah, Puerto Rico, I think. But San Juan is a great card game, and it's one of those where the cards do multiple things. So it can be, you can use it for the building that it is, or it becomes money. Like you need somebody. But it's another one that's like, it's just strategic enough to where it could be 2 players, or it could be 4 players, or whatever, 3 players. There's enough strategy there to where it's like there's enough meat on the bone where you're having fun, you're thinking, you get to be, there's enough critical thinking. But it's also like it'll last under an hour, which is nice. So you're not like the whole evening, kind of stuck at one game. So yeah, those are definitely those are great ones to play right now, especially if people haven't been into games before. It'll really open up your eyes like how deep some of these board games can go, and just really takes the luck out, and it's more the strategy, which is nice.
For Christmas, I bought myself Gloomhaven. You heard of that one?
I have it, and I haven't found a group to play it yet. But
oh my goodness, It took about 4 hours to read the rule book and figure out how in the world to play this stupid thing. Did you know you can play? I don't know. I can't vouch for how fun it is, but you can play with just one person. Like you can play solo, or you and your wife can play if you could convince her to do it.
Yeah, I think about the solo games, and I just think of how sad
alone it is.
Could you play it? Could you play it with Skype?
That I'm wondering, because we have to pull cards from a deck, but maybe, Seth, if we both played the solo version but just kept each other company, we wouldn't be as sad.
Yeah, and you probably. Well,
that doesn't sound pathetic at all.
You know what though? Honestly, it probably would work because you have a copy, and so you could use the deck for the character. One person could use just the character deck, and then the other person has like the board and all the monsters and things. Have you played it at all yet?
No.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be such a good time, and really they say where it really sings is like if you've got a devoted group that could come together, like I would love to get a group of friends and do it like even if it's just every other week or once a month or something, come together and play so that way you're with your same team.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's very, very much Dungeons and Dragons made board game. And so it's a lot of the preparation and some of the heavy lifting that normally would be done by the dungeon master is kind of taken care of. And so it's having done both, it's like you can just sit around the table, let the game do the heavy lifting, and you play. But it is, I mean, one session could be 2 hours just to get through basically one level. And so, I
think these days,
progressing.
It sounds so appealing these days,
Right, except for the social distancing part. It's such an expensive game that you can't ask other people to just go out and pick up a copy so you can play online.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Josh, let me ask you a question that relates to the smoking and to the YTPC. What is it going to take to get you to light up your pipe and turn your camera on and shoot a video?
That's funny. You know what my problem is? So I watch so much content being created on YouTube. I listen to tons of podcasts. I love it. And I think, what could I possibly add to the world that hasn't been said or needs to be said? I'm so that's been my gun. I'm so gun shy on that, like, because I feel like, what do I have to add? No one wants to hear,
They do. We do.
Well, maybe I'll have to give it a try. I mean, it's funny because I'll watch you. I'm so entertained, and then I think, man, these guys have it down. I don't know what I would do. Or
they just talked about nothing for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes.
Just sat around waiting for that grilled cheese sandwich to show up.
Yeah, that is the slowest cheese sandwich I've ever seen made.
Oh my gosh. No kidding. Well, speaking of time, we probably ought to wrap this up. I do want to make a little bit of an announcement, if I can, and that is that Boy and I will do a live show every Tuesday night for a few weeks. We'll see how this goes. We have invited a couple people to join us. And there was a couple recommendations last week that we invite Tom, Northwest pipe smoker, to be our guest. And we've been in touch, and he has agreed. So that'll happen not next week, but a few weeks out. Next week's guest is going to be George Bruno. So if you know George Bruno from right here on YouTube and super prolific on Twitter, he is going to be our guest, and we hope that everybody joins us, including you, Josh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is awesome, guys. Thank you so much. This has been a nice way to spend some time chatting with friends, and then you forget, like, oh, yeah, other people are listening to this nonsense. So I really appreciate it, guys. This was a nice way to spend the evening.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's fun to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know it's time to wrap it up because I keep getting 10% and now 5%. I should have done what you did, Josh, and plugged in before I got started. But I am going to have to wrap it up. So with this video, it goes live here like almost immediately, right, Seth? Is that it? Is a video?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah,
once we end this, YouTube does something with it. It becomes an actual video in our feed. We'll add the link to Josh's video, and if anything else comes to mind, you guys, if you want to put links to those games or something for folks that might want to find them, that would be cool too.
Sure, and if there's a clown photo, we can figure out a way to throw that in there.
Okay. Or I bet you there's a YouTube video of me on Cirque du Soleil running around like a moron. Well, I'll have to see if I can
find that for us, please.
Is there any likelihood of videos from the time with Amazing Jonathan?
No, because we were always live and you couldn't record. That was the tough part. Most of my career doesn't exist because I was always in live performance. Yeah, so that's the challenge.
Well, this exists. We've recorded this, so
that's right. Forever.
This will be here for posterity. Well, thanks again, Josh, for joining us. Thank you for those of you who were in the live chat for keeping each other company. Were there any other questions or comments, Boyd?
No, just a bunch of people saying, "Hey, one more question." I see Austin asks, "What are some of your top podcasts?"
Great question.
Oh, top podcasts. I really, and I'm like, my podcast, and it's on my phone right now, my podcast catcher. I listen to Adam Carolla sometimes. I will, because I'm looking for the truth, so I think it's somewhere in the middle. So I listen to very far left and very far right political stuff because it's very interesting for me to hear perspectives. I won't name those names, but I suggest you do that because it's very eye-opening to hear different people's perspectives, especially when the country's almost half and half. So you're almost insane not to. And then trying to think of something else that I've really been enjoying lately. YouTube I've been turning to more and more. And then audiobooks. I love audiobooks. Sorry, guys, I'm like not naming stuff. I would normally want to pull up the list and read it to you guys.
Do this then. After we're done, or whenever it goes live, or whenever you get a chance, add a list to the comments.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put it in the comments. Everybody, look for some suggestions.
Good idea. On YouTube, your channel is Joshua Zehner, right?
And I have another one
on Twitter.
On Twitter, it's at Joshua Zehner, all one word.
Instagram, if we want to see your son.
Joshua Zehner, although I have it private right now. Maybe I'll open it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Joshua Zehner is everything. I'm Joshua Zehner on the web. I grabbed all of them as they came out. I was like one of the first guys on Twitter and stuff. So it's always Joshua Zehner. So.
Well, as of this episode, you are now available at mywieneryourmouth.com.
I can never let that one go, huh?
Nope. All right. With that, we will say goodbye to you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Josh.
And make it a great.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.